The three blind mice, Lee of Time Riders Wee Little Cars, Paul of Fat Guy Productions, and George of Hodges, Hot Wheels, and Diecast, are having a Flashsider invitational again this year, and I'm thrilled to take part in it. There's the Flashsider I'm going to be using. It's a little play-worn, but not bad. You can see the casting lines on it already, so that needs some work. But let's get this thing apart. And I do have some ideas for what I was going to do with it. And plastic base, you notice the glass and metal body. There is no interior to the Flashsider. So that makes worrying about taking care of an interior a lot easier. One less thing to worry about. I had started to do something with the previous casting that I decided to use on this one instead. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm busting out the jeweler's saw and hacking this thing in half. I'm going to get rid of the bed of it. I'm keeping the front half. I'm not chucking the bed. You know you're going to see that thing turn up in some other casting creation that I do in the future. Nothing goes to waste. There's always always some use for it. And in fact, I was sticking it on the back of a bone shaker casting right after I cut it off of this, seeing how it would look. So don't be surprised if you see that happen. But get this thing cut off. And as you see, there's kind of a gaping hole behind the cab now. But we're going to take care of that. But because of what I'm going to be doing with this, and you probably saw in the description of this, I call this the mullet. And as everybody knows, a mullet is business in the front, party in the back. So that gives you an idea where we're going. So there you see I have the front half. I cut the back half of the bed and the chassis off. And now I've done this trick before with tape where I want to close off the back of that gaping hole in the cab. And so I just put some of the blue painter's tape back there. And again, like I said, you've seen me do this before on a few other things. It works really well for me. It's easier than trying to cut a piece of styrene to fit that and then gluing the styrene in and trying to get it to stick and everything. This kind of takes care of the whole process. You just put that paint in and then fill that area with JB Weld. I needed to be careful not to get to the edges of the back because that base has sides that stick up that would rub. So I had to be careful. But I let it sit for 24 hours. Supposedly, I think you can do it after 8 hours, I believe is the time they say that it cures. I just let it sit overnight, check it out the next day, and as you can see there, it filled it in, and it's a perfect fit. It's instantly a perfect fit, as opposed to trying to do that with styrene and then filling in any gaps or anything like that. So we have the base to that. I'm obviously going to do a wheel swap. Those wheels suck. And so everything kind of fits together well. There's that weird little chunk of plastic sticking up in the base, and I had plans for that. It's not needed. That's just sitting there for no apparent reason. I probably should have. I throw the base in super clean. I should have thrown that little piece in super clean at the same time. But I decided I wanted to take that little chunk. I drilled a hole in it. And because the way this base works, the post was in the bed. And then it hooks on the front of the cab. So there's only the one post. So I had no post after cutting off the bed. So I'm sorry it's out of the bottom of the frame here. But what I'm basically doing is gluing that little piece of plastic on that back wall that I just created. And then I drill a hole in the base to match where that new post is. It's a plastic post that I put in. So you have to be careful not to strip it when you're screwing the little tiny screw in. But if you're just patient and you do it right, at least that gives you something to hold on to. to keep that base attached. And we're going to be hanging more off this base in a second. And I didn't just want to glue it all together. I wanted to truly have a base that separates from the cab. Maybe that's stupid, or creating more work than there needed to be. But I don't know, I just found it really appealing. I mean, I think you'll appreciate it too. There I am using some baking soda. I went over it again. Once I knew it was in the perfect place, I used a little more CA glue and then hit it with baking soda to strengthen it, which is a handy way to strengthen a CA bonded area. So there you see, I throw the screw in, and sure enough, and now I have a base that screws in. I have a post to cling to, and I can work from there. The casting itself, as I mentioned earlier, as you could see when it was on the turntable, it has some absolutely horrific casting lines, and I did my best to get rid of them. Some of them are tough to get to, but it worked out. And then because of what I'm doing, I don't need these exhaust pipes because they're not going to head out the back down the sides like that. And I also needed to clean up the area around where that screw goes in. I wanted the screw to sit a little more flush to the base, just to give me a little more clearance under it. There you see a resin part that I bought from Benchworks Toys. They advertise on eBay, and they also have a website, as I listed there. I cut the interior section off of that. As I mentioned, I was going to use that on another casting. And just to let you know, because I plan on doing it again anyway, I was planning on hanging that back off of a bone shaker. And so I had cut it earlier. And if you've ever tried cutting a resin cast piece, it is not easy. You have to be very patient, and that's part of why you don't see any film of me cutting it, is because it was tedious and nerve-wracking, to put it mildly. I used a couple little spots of CA glue just to tack that in place to make sure it worked. Just briefly again on the cutting of it, I used an X-Acto saw to cut it. I didn't use the jeweler saw. The X-Acto saw seemed to work well. And again, you just had to be super patient because the resin is very fragile. So I just wanted to test out fitting wheels on here to see what that would look like. I was going to go bigs in back, smalls in front. And what I ended up using on this were the Scuderia wheels, if that's how you pronounce it. But I got those off eBay a while back. I think I used them in my previous build as well, my previous video. And like I said, I'm running out of those, but I do have some other wheels that I got recently that I'm looking forward to using. So once I knew this was where I wanted it to be, I just put a lot more CA glue on there and just strengthened that whole connection between the two pieces. It's a beautifully crafted piece. I really like that race truck back end. And well, now you can see why I'm calling this the Mullet. That's the party in the back, the race truck back. So once I had that piece glued on and I was happy with it, I sprayed it with Rust-Oleum flat soft iron paint, rattle can. And that's what you see there. I did the entire base with that. And then I went over detailing it. I used the Sharpie pins, and then I detailed the brakes and the calipers, all of that. What I'm using there, I actually started using some Army Painter paints. I got some of those just to see what they were like. I've actually had them for a little while. You've seen them pop in and out off and on some of the videos. But on this one, I pretty much exclusively used those instead of the Citadel paints to see how they would work. And to be honest with you, they work seemingly just as well as the Citadel paints. And I really like the bottles. I don't know why, for me, the Citadel little tubs, they're fine. They sit more evenly, or you're not as apt to knock them over. But I like the way these bottles, you can just put a little drop out. Where with the Citadel paints, I just tend to get crusty on me, for lack of a better way of putting it. And this I could just put, like, truly, as you see there, and you've seen that pellet or whatever you want to call it, that plastic thing with the little tubs in it. And here I'm getting out the Gundam marker. Excuse me. You've seen that pellet thing back there before, and it's been looking nastier and nastier through each video. And after seeing it in the last video, I thought, oh dear Lord, I better clean that thing because it's absolutely nasty. So I can't say it's not going to get back to being there, but at least it's clean now. And yeah, it looks like it's fresh and new, and it's not. It's just clean. It's kind of like the helping hands. After I use them, they just get nastier and nastier all the time as they get multiple coats of paint. And then at some point you snap and you just take it apart, you drop it in the stripper and clean them all off, and you start over again. and I mean, they're fine. It's not like you need to buy a new set. You may need to glue the little alligator clips on them again, because they don't seem to hold as tight after a while. But, why buy another set when all you got to do is strip them? And Lord knows, if you're building these little things, you do have paint stripper. So there you kind of have where I'm at this point. I've gone over the front grille, the front bumper, the back wing with flat black Army Painter paint. And you see some of the details there. I did go over the base. That was with the Citadel silver pin. Here you see me doing the front grille now with the flat black. But I did use the, as I said, the silver Citadel, the silver Sharpie paint pen to do the base. Just some of that detail. And obviously it ended because I shaved off a lot of it. I wasn't super concerned about the bottom. You can see the welded connection there between the two pieces. And I thought about sanding that smooth, and then I thought, I might just weaken that connection. So, Lord knows what this would look like in real life. The welding might be a lot smoother. But they'd have a lot more to work with. So there's the paints I ended up using. There's the flat soft iron. I used smoke gray for the body, but it was a gloss for the cab. And I wanted a matte finish, or kind of a semi-gloss. As you'll see, I hit it with matte. It's still gloss at this point that you see me doing this. And I thought, well, this is a pseudo race truck. And it doesn't have taillights, obviously. So I just blackened out the headlights and the turn signal indicators on the front. I thought that'd give it a good look, kind of a mean look. And again, the Army Painter paints worked really well for this. And so once I had this detail added, that's when I went over it with the clear matte finish in the Rust-Oleum cans. And the paint's nothing special. It truly is just Rust-Oleum. You can't see through the glass on this thing, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't hit it with gauzy, gauzy, gauzy. For those of you playing the drinking game still, glad to help you out. Anytime I can use gauzy, I'll use gauzy. So there you have that. And it does turn out beautifully. The Scuderia wheels have those silly little caps they give you. I don't use those. I use these little tiny tube chunks. I forget exactly what they're called because I'm old and feeble-minded. I don't crimp these. I just use a CA glue, but as I said before, I break these things when I try and crimp them, but I haven't had an actual crimping tool. And then for whatever reason, I was checking out Amazon the other day, and they had one for a few bucks. I don't know, like $5 or something like that. And so I went ahead and ordered one. So that's supposed to be arriving, I think, today. So we'll see how that works. If it's any better or worse, I'll let you know. I'm hoping it at least crimps them on a little tightly, and then I'll still probably hit it with the CA glue. But there you have the results. You know, it's a fairly simple casting. I can't wait to see what everybody else does with it. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Three Blind Mice for doing that again this year, and hopefully we'll do another one next year. Be sure and check out their website. I'll have links to that down below. And please check out all the other builders participating in this. As you see, that front hooks on. There's just that part there. And again, it was a snug fit the way I did it because I didn't want that back frame hanging off too far. And at the same time, I wanted the cab to have a little bit of a rake to it. And so I was able to accomplish that. And there you get a good look at the headlights too. But again, thanks to the Three Blind Mice and all the other participants. I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody does with their Flashsider this time. And I'm already trying to think up ideas for next year's Flashsider. Funny thing is, I think I already have another, beat to hell Flashsider casting that is waiting in the wings. I'll try and come up with something good. I think this was kind of interesting. I hope you enjoy this. You can also tell it has that matte finish on the cab at this point. And best part, it rolls great. So there you have where we started. Funny thing about it is I didn't stray that far from that color when you get down to it. I pretty much stuck with that kind of silvery grayish color that you see there, but I decided to make it the mullet. Business in the front, party in the back. Yeah, I don't know. I love it. I'm really happy with this build. I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, and it pretty much turned out exactly as I hoped. And I'll probably, I actually know I'm going to do the same thing with the bone shaker. So that back end you see there is going to reappear. I'm going to cut another one up and have at it. Here's a couple glamour shots. Thank you all for watching these videos. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. I really do appreciate you watching these. I'd like to take a moment, too, to thank my Patreon members. Thank you very much for all of your support. I truly do appreciate it. And everybody stay safe and healthy out there. I'll catch you in the next one.